I'd like to do a short informal book review of St. Alphonsus's Preparation for Death. Uh, it's also called The Considerations on Eternal Truths, the Maxims of Eternity, a Rule of Life. So this is probably the most important book you will ever have, the most important book that you'll ever be exposed to. It really puts your whole life into perspective. It talks about us as a human being and our human nature. And it helps to really put everything into perspective. And especially nowadays, we don't really talk about passing into the next world very much. We want to ignore it. It's a super uncomfortable topic, and it seems to me that it's kind of the idea of passing on to the next world. What will happen in a few years? What will happen when we get old? This type of uh, idea that we will not be here forever, and we're at some point, sooner rather than later, we're going to leave this world. That type of idea is kind of brushed under the rug, so to speak. Very, very, very rarely in modern society do we have any thinking of this. The modern society seems to have a message that we're never going to die. If you listen to the popular music, some of the themes of the popular music are that we'll live forever. But this book really, in a succinct way, puts everything into perspective in a very scientific, philosophical, in a very direct way that I am not aware of any other book that kind of so perfectly tries to present the idea that unfortunately um, we're going to die at some point in time, sooner rather than later. And as I mentioned before, I'm not aware of any other book that or author that really kind of brings this to our attention. So I'm making this for my family and friends and the people that are dear to me. I'd like to share this St. Alphonsus work with them. Just if I had a very good investment or some type of advice on how to make a lot of money, wouldn't I want to share this with them? Share how to make the money with them. So, how much more important is our life that comes after this world than money and investments? So, I'm making it for them. I'm also kind of making it for myself to remind myself that at some point I also will pass away and I need to get my act together and many things. St. Alphonsus puts this main idea into very easy. He does it in a way that's very easy for the average person to follow along. And he's organized his work into quick 15 to 20 minute segments that all tie together into larger sections. And we will look at each one of these 15 to 20 minute segments shortly. This method by St. Alphonsus is perfect for the average person to fit into their daily life. So, does St. Alphonsus repeat his themes too much? Is he too strict? Not really. Um, he wants the reader to very clearly understand um, that we will pass on from this world at some point, and he wants to emphasize this. He uses a lot of different rhetorical devices to emphasize this to the reader. I think he's really trying to get us to just keep in the back of our mind that it's silly to pretend that we will be here on earth forever. And personally, I find he has a very pastoral and sensitive way of talking about this, about what will happen to us someday. So he uses uh, what he calls considerations or meditations. He uses these little tiny segments. They're about 15 to 20 minutes that fit into our daily life very easily through spiritual reading. Spiritual reading is very important, and it's something that I struggle with, and I think that a lot of people struggle with. A lot of people want to listen to YouTube, but the act of reading really helps awaken your mind. And from what I understand, we know God through our mind. That's how we're able to really know and love God, and to appreciate heaven and hell, and to understand these abstract concepts. So, from what I understand, the act of reading is different than the way we pick up that knowledge and meditate on it and understand it is different than if we watch a YouTube video, for example. YouTube videos are good for certain things, but reading, it makes us quiet, and it helps us to focus in, and it helps us to develop our attention towards God. So that's kind of the why reading is so important. A little more about the considerations. They're quick little meditations in various themes. And so he'll go on for about 13 minutes about some meditation. And the last 2 or 3 minutes, he'll end with a prayer. So he will, St. Alphonsus will go a meditation could be like, our time on earth is short, time goes by quickly, time is a treasure from God. And there'll be various he'll write about that for about 15 minutes, about 12 minutes, and then 3 minutes, the last 3 minutes of that will be, All Blessed Virgin Mary, Sacred Heart of Jesus, help me to make the best use of our time. You have died for us. Our Lord, you've died for us. Please help me to use my time as best to my service. So it's really kind of an interesting way, and it's easy for us to kind of get into just the whole tempo of the prayer and the meditation. It really works well together, and I think it's a good way to work on a spiritual life and a spiritual reading for 15 minutes a day. It's more of a marathon than a sprint. So these considerations are something that you can do for an entire year. It's not like you'd want, I suppose you could, but you wouldn't sit down for 8 hours a day and read St. Alphonsus. It would be better if you would spend a year and just do 15 to 20 minutes of reading every day. Okay. So who is this book written for? I think it's written for everyone, because everyone will pass on to the next world one day. The rulers, the popular entertainers, the traditional Catholics, the Novus Ordo Catholics, the beautiful woman, our non-Catholic colleagues that we work with every day, the bishops, the priests, the atheists. St. Alphonsus talks about how all people will pass on to the next world someday. And parents should think about encouraging their children to read this book. As such, St. Alphonsus lays out this case with skill, with the skill of a lawyer, that all men must depart from this world. And he also, towards the end of the book, gives us a lot of helpful guidance on how to prepare for that day. So I think everyone should read this book at least once, and even if you're non-Catholic, it helps put your life in perspective also, from a philosophical perspective. Maybe you don't believe in God, but even the atheist will sometimes pass away. Even the atheist will pass away, and there's no getting out of it, no matter who you are. So, and honestly, I really do like the style of it. It's quite charming, and St. Alphonsus has done an excellent job just thinking out his approach to it. He had very great care of souls, and he started the Redemptorists, and his whole vocation of the Redemptorists was to preach and he also has a lot of authority and experience as a bishop. He was a bishop of a tiny little diocese. Is St. Alphonsus too strict? I think we kind of talked about that a little previously. He's very blunt and to the point, but it seems he does so to tell the truth in a very direct way. Um, if you care about people, you'll tell them the truth, and you will not hide anything from them. So we don't really want to think about death nowadays. It's very uncomfortable to us, but St. Alphonsus does so in a tactful way. It's not very ghoulish or gruesome, but he does really have an appropriate way of talking about it. He's very direct when he talks about death. The first few considerations are talking about just dying and what it's like at your final day. He tries to paint your final day on Earth, and he's definitely very direct about it, but not in a way that's off-putting. So he talks about death a little bit also. I think I have repeated this theme several times, and I'll do it again. He emphasizes that we're passing through a temporary place, and we will leave all behind at some point. He's a doctor of the church, and he's approved by many previous popes. I'm honestly not too sure about what the current leadership and the Pope and the administrators in Rome think about St. Alphonsus. I haven't really heard them speak much about St. Alphonsus. I've heard them talk about same-sex unions and couples and blessings, but I have not heard them talk about St. Alphonsus too much, unfortunately. The solutions and guidance of St. Alphonsus on preparing for a final day. Towards the end of the book, he kind of switches from the actual meditations on death, and he tells us how to prepare. So the first part is kind of the doom and gloom part. You're going to die. You better prepare. But the last part of it is how you can do that. So he's not just presenting the problem, but he's also presenting the solution. It seems he uses Christian charity to ensure that the reader is very clear on what will happen to him at some point after he departs this world in the first part. He was a bishop. The Pope asked him to be a bishop of a small diocese in Italy. He took his job very seriously, even though he wasn't very excited about this assignment. But I think it seems to me that he took the tricks of and the experience he had as a bishop to come up with some of these this advice and this guidance. There's definitely a lot of advice and guidance in this book. It's amazing how much he's able to fit into this book. But the next two volumes that come after this first one, Preparation for Death, they go into a lot more detail on just what you can do to prepare for death and how to develop into your spiritual life better. And we'll talk about those in a later YouTube video. Towards the end of the book, there's some helpful plans for structuring your week and structuring your prayer life, and we'll look at those shortly. I really like the weekly plan that he lays out. Throughout this book, there's a theme of exercising. It seems that I'm not very well read when it comes to the greater saints, but the few spiritual works that I have read by the saints, the bigger saints, they have a theme about exercising. And true to form, St. Alphonsus wants us to treat our spiritual life in the way that an athlete would train, by ensuring that we are strong in our spiritual life and exercising. To be noted, the Blessed Virgin Mary is featured prominently in his work. He had a very strong devotion to the Blessed Virgin. He's written two very, very famous books about the Blessed Virgin Mary. There's a frequent mention of the Blessed Virgin in some of the prayers at the end of the considerations. And there's several considerations specifically about the Blessed Virgin and how she's very important in our final days. How it's good to have devotion to her, and it's a very, very important part of his work. There's throughout the book, there's many beautiful short prayers, meditations. So what's in this book? It's pretty much all considerations, and I'm going to just try to run through them very quickly, just so you can get a sense of what's in them, in the book. And I'll just read them off this slide, and I'll just quickly touch on each one. Okay. 1. The portrait of a man who has recently gone to the other world, the body on the deathbed, the body in the grave. Let us labor to save our souls. Very beautiful first considerations, very beautiful theme. And again, they're all 15 to 20 minutes, each one of those sections. So he'll, in this particular one, the first one of the book, the first 15 minutes is the body on the deathbed. The next 15 to 20 minutes is the body in the grave. So, and it has a repeating pattern all for the first section of the book. With death all ends. Death deprives us of everything. Glory and power on the deathbed. Let us hasten to give ourselves to God. Shortness of life. Death comes quickly. The lighted candle at death. The importance of the last moment. The certainty of death. All men must die. Every moment we approach death, we should think continually of death. The uncertainty of the hour of death. The moment is fixed, but it's unknown. We should make up our accounts. We must always be ready. The death of the sinner. The sinner will seek God at death, but he will not find him. Anguish of the dying sinner. We must seek God when we can find him. So right now we're hopefully healthy and we're full of energy. We should really be preparing to meet God now when we have full faculties about us, because when we're on our deathbed, we might be sick with cancer, whatever, out of energy. We might have distractions. Our wives might be there. Our children might be there bugging us. But we should prepare right now. There's no time better than now. Sentiments of a dying Christian who's been careless about his duties of religion and has thought but little of death. Very scary one for me as just a Christian, because I know I'm very lacking in many of the virtues of a Christian, and I'm a very weak Christian. So just this like I said at the beginning, this book is great for everybody. Sad state of the worldling at death. Desire of the worldling at death. Tardy regrets of a dying person. Continued. The death of the just. The death of the just is just rest. The death of the just is a victory. The death of the just is the entrance to life. Peace of the just at the hour of death. The just have nothing to fear at the hour of death. The just die in a sweet peace. The just in dying have a foretaste of celestial joy. Means for preparing for death. Not to wait till the last moment. put our conscience in a good state, and regulate our lives. We must detach ourselves from the world. The value of time. Time is a treasure of the earth. Neglect of time. We must profit by time. Just a side note, it seems that the world is bent on us wasting time. There's so much you can waste your time on nowadays. Social media, YouTube. It's a big, a big thing for me. I'm spending too much time on YouTube. So time is so precious. It goes by very quickly. Very beautiful considerations here that St. Alphonsus has. I'm not really doing justice by rushing through them. The importance of salvation. Salvation is our own most important affair. Salvation is our only affair. Pretty much, unless we get to heaven, nothing else matters in this world. Failure in saving our souls is an irredeemable evil. The vanity of the world. The goods of the world are useless. The goods of this world are contemptible. We must work for heaven. Life is a journey to eternity. Man is a traveler on earth. Man can secure eternal happiness. Man shall go into the house of eternity. The malice of mortal sin. The sinner insults God. The sinner dishonors God. The sinner afflicts God. The mercy of God. God waits for the sinner. God calls the sinner. God receives the sinner with kindness. Abuse of divine mercy. God is merciful, but he's also just. The sinner abandoned by God. Unfortunate is he who allows the time of mercy to pass by. The number of sins. The measure is determined for each one. The measure is not the same for all. We must always fear. The state of grace and of disgrace with God. The dignity to which the grace of God raises us. Advantages that the grace of God procures for us. Enmity with God. The folly of the sinner. The large number of fools. Great folly, true wisdom. So it's just interesting. We're surrounded by people who don't really care too much about going to heaven. And honestly, I'm not going to say that sometimes I don't think going to heaven's, I forget about how important it is. But how many people nowadays really think about going to heaven? So I just thought this particular consideration was really touching. The unhappy life of the sinner, the happy life of him who loves God. The world cannot make us happy. Interior torments of the sinner, happiness of the just on earth. The habit of sin. The habit of sin binds the soul. The habit of sin hardens the heart. The habit of sin leads to final impenitence. The delusions which the devil puts into the mind of the sinners. I will go to confession. I cannot resist. God is merciful. I am young, perhaps. So this is also one that I really liked because it's something that I think all Catholics need to remind themselves of, that you shouldn't be abusing confession. If you make a sin, if you do a sin, hopefully it's not a mortal sin, but if you do a mortal sin, you should go to confession. But you really need to try to not do any more sins. And I think it's a danger, and it's a huge temptation for many people not to have that element of confession, not to make that commitment to stop sinning. So whatever it is, maybe it's a girl, or it's some friends, or maybe it's just books you like to read, or YouTube videos that you like to watch, or something like that. You gotta cut certain things out of your life if they are not good for you, and they're making you fall into sin. You can't just use confession to clean your soul and then go back to doing the same things you were doing before. So, the particular judgment, the guilty soul before its judge, nothing will remain hidden. The sentence, the general judgment, the general resurrection, the valley of Jehoshaphat, the eternal sentence, the pains of hell, the pain of sense, the fire of hell, the pain of loss, the eternity of hell. Hell is eternal, the weight of eternity. Eternity is unchangeable. The remorse of the damned, the little for which the damned are lost, the little that was required for their salvation, the great good that the damned have lost. Heaven, the entrance of the soul into paradise, happiness in heaven. Heaven is eternal. Prayer, the efficacy of prayer, the necessity of prayer, the conditions of prayer. Perseverance, the necessity of perseverance, the means of defense against the devil. We must conquer the world. We must struggle against the flesh. Recapitulation. The confidence in the patronage of Mary, the power of Mary, the mercy of Mary, the charity of Mary. The love of God, the love and goodness shown by God to man. God has given himself to us. Love that Jesus Christ has shown in his passion. Holy Communion. The Eucharist is a precious gift. The Eucharist is a gift of love. How much Jesus Christ desires to unite himself to us. The dwelling of Jesus on our altars. Jesus makes himself accessible to everyone. Jesus gives audience to all at all times. Jesus only wishes to bestow his graces. The conformity to the will of God, the excellence of this virtue, in what we should conform to God's will. Happiness is derived from the conformity to God's will. Okay, so here we go to just a little bit, it's very short, but St. Alphonsus does go into some planning and some guidance here on just how we should think about setting up our week. And again, I think the general intent, maybe I'm not trying to put words in St. Alphonsus's book that aren't there, but I think generally speaking, he wants us to just have some order and some type of schedule. And I think that's kind of the greater thought behind St. Alphonsus here. But he gives us some examples here. So he has a plan for a retreat of 8 days. The soul enamored of the beauty of God's maximum of eternity. I think, if I remember correctly, that's a little poem. The meditations for every day in the week. And this is how he was thinking about structuring a week possibly. So on Sunday, you think about the end of man. On Monday, the importance of our last end. On Tuesday, you'd think about mortal sin. On Wednesday, you'd think about death. On Thursday, you'd think about judgment. And then Friday, you'd think about hell. And on Saturday, you'd think about the eternity and pains of hell. He has a hymn, and the hymn that he wrote is "The Soul Sighing for Heaven." Okay, so here's a little bit more of of just his guidance and just thoughts as we do our spiritual life, or try to plan our spiritual life. He talks about the means of preserving the grace of God, to flee from occasions of sin. He talks about mental prayer, the frequentation of the sacraments, to hear Mass, and the visits to the Most Holy Sacrament and to the Blessed Virgin, prayer. Chapter 2 in the next part of the book. Acts and practices of piety, acts and different prayers on rising in the morning, during the day, the method of making mental prayer, acts to be made by way of preparation and thanksgiving, both for confession and communion, the method of hearing Mass, acts to be made in visiting the Most Holy Sacrament and the Divine Mother, acts to be made in the evening before going to bed, devout prayers to Jesus and Mary to obtain the graces necessary to salvation. Chapter 3, the practice of the Christian virtues, the practice of humility, the practice of mortification, the practice of charity towards our neighbor, the practice of patience, the practice of conformity to the will of God on page 450, the practice of purity of attention, rules for avoiding tepidity, the practice of devotion to the great Mother of God, the practice of certain means by which we may acquire the love of Jesus Christ, admonitions to persons of all states who desire to be saved, the protestation for a happy death, and he ends it with a hymn that he wrote, Mary Our Hope. And there's also an index that was written in this edition, and it's just helps you find the various themes throughout the work. So this is a really important book for our modern days. We're very busy with our lives and our duties of state that we often forget our final goal in heaven. If we don't successfully get to heaven, whatever we've done here on earth is useless. Our priorities are often skewed by modern life, eating and drinking. For me, I like to eat tasty food, and whatever it is, our priorities don't, in the modern world, they don't really align with what is truly important, which is to get to heaven someday. When I was a child, our large homeschooling family were taught by our mother, the first thing in life is to know, love, and serve God and be with Him in heaven. From the Baltimore Catechism, I'm not sure if that's prominently brought out in the new catechisms of maybe the more contemporary teachings of the church, or I'm not saying that the church is teaching that, but just the sense that I'm getting from the modern church. But definitely a more traditional practice of being Catholic, going back to the Council of Trent, a more traditional approach to just life is that at some point we're going to pass on, and we really need to emphasize this and to be aware of this. So I'm not really trying to pick on just the Novus Ordo stuff, but it's something that I feel that the modern churchmen don't fully address. They kind of don't emphasize it as much. They say everybody is going to be saved, or at least that's the attitude that I got when I was going to the Novus Ordo. But according to St. Alphonsus, it seems that we really need to not so much think that everybody's going to be saved and we're automatically going to be saved, but I think St. Alphonsus wants to say that we need to take it more seriously, which I'm just trying to say that it's not really pushed by people who are running the dioceses now. So. And if St. Alphonsus was, I don't think St. Alphonsus would be, I just don't think St. Alphonsus would have been called to be a bishop nowadays by the Pope. It's just me. I might be wrong. I'm sure there's many experts on YouTube and at the Chancery Office who might think differently, but something tells me that the Pope wouldn't appoint St. Alphonsus as bishop nowadays. So yeah, there's a lot of noise in our lives, YouTube, sports, food, etc. And some causes to forget what's really important. We usually only go to church once a week, but our spiritual health needs more attention than once a week. I go to the Latin Mass, and I have to drive between 1.5, 2 hours to go to the Latin Mass. It's closer than when I was a kid, because when I was a kid, it was 2 to 3 hours. So, but now it's a little closer. So that is, but even then, I'm only going to Mass once a week, and on hopefully the major feast days. So, but everyone needs to spend more than an hour a week. So, I think we touched base on this a little bit before, but going to heaven is not a priority portrayed in our modern culture. I think that's maybe a little understatement, but going to heaven. We don't really hear the popular entertainers or the politicians talking about this very much, going to heaven. I'm not a book scholar by any stretch of the imagination, but this, from my research, this seems to be one of the best in the world as it refocuses us on what's really, really important. Traditionally, St. Alphonsus's second two books, which were about how to the means of salvation, those were considered to be possibly, I think, more important than preparation for death. But I think nowadays this book is probably the most important because it's an uncomfortable thought. I think I've said this several times before, but it's so easy to forget about nowadays that at some point we're going to be passing on. So that's pretty much it. Kind of a quick book review. Please support our work. We're Preserving Christian Publications. We're a small traditional Catholic book publishing company. We're trying to grow. We're getting these printed by our Syro-Malabar Catholic brothers and sisters in Kerala, India. Really great people. Kerala, India is where St. Thomas, the Apostle, went, and he founded the Syro-Malabar Catholic Church in southern India. So they're affiliated with Rome. Your support helps promote and continue Catholic book publishing and helps support several large traditional Catholic families in Canada, in India, and the USA who have volunteered to make this work possible. It's a labor of love for them, and they've sacrificed a lot. It's the edition that we're selling is a retype set, so it's digitalized now. You can copy and paste, and it's beautifully typeset for future generations of Catholics. We've taken the older turn of the century edition and we've retypeset it into a modern font, so future generations of Catholics can use it as a PDF, and St. Alphonsus's work will go on after I pass away. This book hopefully will help many, many, many future generations of Catholics. So thank you very much for listening to this, and for your support of St. Alphonsus and the promotion of his good work. And God bless. Ave Maria.